I was too entrepreneurial to stay as one of 2,000 international partners. They wanted me to go back to the New York office to specialize or to help them develop mid-market company products. Instead, and this is all really relevant to my Fed program, instead, Governor Neil Goldschmidt, which some of you may remember, asked me to come and to develop small business programs for the state. So I agreed to be a loan executive and do that for 18 months. As part of that, I also became the small business advocate, or in fact, before that, because of the work I've done with small business, I became a small business advocate and received an award, national award from the Small Business Administration in the Rose Garden. And so as a result of all of that, the Federal Reserve Bank became aware of me. And so they asked me if I would go onto the Portland branch board of the Federal Reserve Bank representing small business and also Washington County.
You have to have the microphone close, or Rudy Mick
Right
in
there.
Colorado.
Right about
won't
Oh,
hear you.
he's in Colorado.
Right. Dallas, he's in Dallas.
That makes a big difference. I normally can project to a room, so it wasn't very
He's on the screen.
Hi Rudy.
I can hear.
Oh,
Okay.
good.
So,
I can hear you.
so I became a member of the Portland branch board with a special beat, and all Federal Reserve Bank board members are given a special beat. And mine was, as I mentioned, small business in Washington County. At the same time, Congress was pushing the Fed to listen to the voice of small business and agriculture more. And so they formed advisory groups for all of the 12 district boards related to the banks. And our districts, I'm going to give you a little background on the Fed also for those of you who don't know how it's structured. The 12th district is headquartered in San Francisco. And it is, at the time the boards were formed, they were all equal size. At the 12th district was formed to be the 9 western states, Samoa and Guam. It is now 20% of the wealth of the United States in the 12th district. So that's why there's a branch in Portland, Seattle, Salt Lake, and Los Angeles. But the advisory council that they formed on small business and agriculture was through the 12th district. And they asked me to co-chair that advisory council at the same time as I was on the Portland branch board. They also, because of my background, asked me to be on the 12th district's audit company. So while I worked with small business, I was auditing trillions, which was kind of different. And
Couple digits.
it's a little different for somebody who was working with small business. And so then also, at the same time, they decided to have national conferences with the chairs of each district. So, but I became the representative from the 12th Federal Reserve District at the conference. And in fact, they asked me to co-chair the national conference also. And so I was lucky enough to chair meetings. The second day conference was with the Board of Governors. So I literally sat next to it and was co-chair first with Volcker and then with Greenspan. And so because of that, I've been very involved with the Fed ever since. So that's the background, that's why. But it also has given me the ability to hear and to see how the Fed really functions, both at the local level, local branch level, the headquarters branches, as well as Washington, D.C. And so I attend virtually all of their family meetings just by sheer happenstance. John called and asked me he said, I know you know about small business, but do you have anything to do with the Fed?
Kind of.
Kind of, and I told him that I asked him when this meeting was. The meeting I just came back from, which for the first time, Janet Yellen is from the 12th Federal Reserve District, so I knew her when she was in San Francisco. And so this was her first time back, her first visit, and that was last Friday. So the timing was incredible.
Thank you.
That's a long story.
This is hot information.
This is very hot information.
Thank you. Thank you. Bill, tell us your platform.
I don't know that I have hot information, but
You've got more.
John, I'm here because John twisted my arm. And I think the implication is if your chapter president asks for help, give in early. So I fell in love with economics when I was 16, did academic stuff, was a professor for a few miserable years, moved into the corporate world, doubled the salary and a more humane environment. So I have been a corporate economist for 2 Fortune 500 companies and a major bank. Went off on my own in '96, and I worked with businesses and I connect the dots between the economy and business, trying to help people in business figure out what should be on their to-do list. Typically, the executives or business owners I work with are smart enough to fix whatever problems come up, but they don't always know what their problem is, and that's one of the things that my perspective helps with.
Great. Thank you, Bill. I'm going to lead off with a question that is...
We should have Rudy introduce himself. Rudy?
Please do. Do we have sound from Rudy?
Yes.
Good.
Rudy, can you hear?
Good.
Where's my mic? I put the headphone.
Hi.
Ah.
Good. Yes, there we go. Yeah. Dovetailing here, Rudy, tell us
So
about
you would like me to introduce myself?
Yes, please.
Is that what I'm hearing? You'd like me to introduce myself?
That's right.
Yes.
Yes. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is I'm in awe of the 2 other panelists. So I am not an economist. However, our consulting work, which is in our 36th year, is all about building businesses, doing startups and growth and or turnarounds, regardless of the economic condition. And the other caveat of that is in 36 years with 1,700 clients, and regardless of the economic scenario, we've managed to have successful either turnaround or growth or startup in any of those economies, and more so have done that without doing layoffs. So in some way, if I deserve to sit on this panel at all, it would be economics from an operations perspective, economics from a place of running a company from definitive sense of purpose, definitive values that include fiscal health, fiscal well-being, not just profit, but fiscal wellness, and that we use purpose, mission, values as active verbs, as active tools. So if I deserve to be here at all, that's the reason. And my perspective will come from a treasury place and operations place in accounting and fiscal responsibility. If that's useful.
Great, very useful. In fact, it's a perfect segue for the first question that I'd like to pose, because Rudy, you just mentioned the operational perspective, And the question is this.
Trying to bring another camera in.
Okay. I thought we were communicating with Mars for a moment. Not
Mars says, go ahead.
Go for
The
it.
economy there is pretty good.
So here's the question. This is a question that every single one of us deal with either with our own business or with the clients we consult with. And that is, we are all faced with the macro-micro question. We're drowning in access to macro information about the economy, labor rates, currency rates, unemployment rates. But we have to make micro decisions about our business or help our clients make micro decisions about their little micro economy, their business. So my question is this: how do you use macro data to make micro decisions? It's an easy question. Well, and what would you recommend to businesses who are faced with that dilemma?
It's actually, is this on?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually the dilemma that any of the business people who attend the Fed meetings have. Because we're not economists. I'm not an economist. And so the question, and I've gotten to the point where the numbers are fascinating as far as the unemployment, the gross domestic product, whether you're talking about of Oregon or of the country, all of those are very important, and I guess I'm setting up Bill.
It's been done, yes.
Because he can far out explain all of the factors that go into making good decisions, the good economic decisions. What I've found, or what I do at these meetings is here, and all of us as Fed board members, the real part that makes it applicable to our businesses and industries, and every representative there has a beat, which is their different industries or areas. The part that's most interesting to me is always why. The why question, which is, for instance, in looking at, there's an increasingly rapid time between when a business decides to do something and when they want to begin operating. And so the need to make quick decisions about what's happening, when it will be critical, or how it will be successful, which direction they should move, when they should hire people, when they should make the investment in more inventory. And so it's listening to really the whys that is most useful to me. And it's how is this going to affect us? How is, for instance, the information that comes with all of the big economics information, like what's that going to do to the way that we spend our dollars, to the way that we manage our companies. Does that make sense?
It's the challenge. Any recommendations you would make for small
Yes.
businesses to translate macro to micro?
So it's listening to, when you listen to those statistics, it's thinking about it's the trends that you get at the same time, and that's how I'm setting up a bill, which is at the same time, what's the fact that we're in a new normal, which is a basic that I just heard at the meeting, and that all of the businesses kept pushing back on Janet and everyone else, is when are we going to really recover? And I'm not going to answer that because I know Bill has probably heard that. But the question is, if we're in a new normal that says we're less concerned today about the big swings, and what's actually been happening says that we are probably the healthiest that we've been ever. And that we've come back, we have now surpassed where we were pre-recession. And what, so it's looking at, it's keeping track of the trends, and that's what I listen for. It's in addition to the big macro data, I listen for what are people doing in my industry? And the Fed and other economists come up with that constantly. So it's listening to the whys, and it's maybe you can start there as far as mentioning,
Yeah.
and then I'll give you some examples if you don't say them also.
All right. Let me talk about what I have seen that I don't recommend, and then what I've seen that is good. I speak a lot at trade associations and corporate boards and that kind of stuff. And when the subject, when a typical business person hears the subject is the economy, a very common response is right now, Trump good or Trump bad, bozos in Washington, country going to hell in a handbasket, what are we going to do about the dollar, and all sorts of things that have no direct relevance to their business. Occasionally, actually more than occasionally, but not quite half the time, I'll talk to somebody who is able to say, well, our end users are consumers, or our end users are companies doing an expansion of their manufacturing facility, or our end user is the federal government. They know who the end user is, they know who, and then they follow the indicators for that particular, if you're making plywood, you follow housing starts. If you're, in the restaurant business, you're following consumer spending, discretionary consumer spending, and a lot of people want to stay at sort of that high level when they think about the economy, and they'll look at their own sales figures, but they don't get the intermediate step of, hey, what is consumer discretionary spending? But some folks do it well, and if they're in the restaurant business, they're looking at their own sales and comparing them to industry benchmarks. What's the National Restaurant Association say about, is our sales up because more people are coming in, or because the same number of people are coming in but they're ordering dessert now whereas they didn't, and drilling down a little bit. So I think the sweet spot, the opportunity for businesses is to get away from the politics and look at which portions of the big picture are most important for that business.
Okay, to segment the big picture.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, that's a good way to put a segment. Can I steal that?
Yep, please do. John, you got it.
Tracy Williams from the Stardust Diner is joined us, and this might be a perfect opportunity. Tracy, if you want to step up forward over there and sit next to Bruce, maybe you can address this restaurant issue a little bit, and we'll dig into industries, because that's one of the focuses, and that's why we have industry representatives here to talk about specific industry issues.
Were you here for the question?
Yes, and
Right, okay, good.
but first introduce yourself. Please, first introduce yourself.
Okay. And why should we eat at your place?
Okay, so yes, my name is Tracy Williams. I'm the owner of Stardust Diner in Vancouver, Washington. We're a old-fashioned silver Twinkie stainless steel 50s diner. I'm kind of an accidental small businessman. I was in the mortgage industry for 14 years, and then my job kind of disappeared right about 2007. So why not open a restaurant? So my wife and I did that in 2008, and our philosophy was there's plenty of places where you can get good food, but good service is a lot harder to find. So neither my wife and I have any kind of culinary background at all. We both put ourselves through college waiting tables, so we knew a little bit about service, so that we made that our focus. Our MO at Stardust Diner is extreme service. We have a very high ratio of service personnel to customers. We compete against folks like Sherry's, IHOP, those kind of restaurants. But we strive to have a really high level of service, very quick service, timely service, and just excellent service. And with that as the base of our philosophy, we've more than tripled our sales over our period of 8 years. And we were kind of rolling along, building a war chest to start a second location, and with possibly the outlook of making a framework, making a business model that could be duplicated many times over, and maybe go to a franchising type of thing. However, we've kind of put those plans on hold, at least for a little bit. The whole new minimum wage law that was passed in Washington State, making Washington State the highest minimum wage state in the nation.
And I want to come back to that question for you and a number of people. So
When that tops out in 2020, that'll be the highest minimum wage state. So that's kind of one of the biggest dilemmas that I have going forward, is how to adjust our model to deal with that new reality. And as far as the outstanding question, micro versus macro, I wish you would have told me I needed to respond.
it's a challenging question. Well, it sounds like you're truly in the middle of looking at changing and expanding your business model. So you're not looking at just a single operation, a single location, but really looking at, do the economics support expanding? I'm just curious, what kinds of information sources have you looked at to try to inform you about whether to go bigger?
I do pay a lot of attention to statistics in like the local news, local newspaper, mostly about new households moving in. That's always been a very encouraging thing in Clark County. The growth rate in Clark County is pretty phenomenal, still is and has been for the last 4 or 5 years. And just anecdotally, we've seen quite a few competitors move into our